Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The movie Woodwalkers. Farag is a teenager who can transform into different shapes. He dreams about a gang of owls who used to be his family when he was little. He remembers how much he fought with humans, to the point that he left his family to get closer to them. He jumps in his sleep, filling up the bed, and wakes up terrified. Farag, who now goes by the name Jay, goes downstairs and sits with his adoptive parents, Donald and Anna Ralston, his brother Marlon, and his little sister, Melody, who is still dealing with the whole becoming a vegetarian thing. The news comes on, showing that animals have started rebelling all over the world. Planes are crashing and ships are disappearing. Then the whole family goes out to take Jay to his new school. His mom is supposed to take him alone, but Melody is stubborn and keeps crying until they agree to take her too. On the way, Jay notices some crows following them, but he doesn't take it seriously when he hears his mom and sister singing together. They reach the outskirts of Jackson, Wyoming, and spend the night there. His mom talks to him about Clearwater Academy, but Jay feels like they just want to get rid of him since he's not really their son. She sits beside him and reassures him that she won't leave him if he doesn't like the school. In the middle of the night, Jay hears strange noises, and when he looks out the window, he sees a wolf shapeshifter sneaking into the Black Mountain mine across from the motel. Then suddenly, a building turns off its lights, but Jay doesn't care and goes back to bed, spending the rest of the night awake. In the morning, his mom takes them to Clearwater Academy. It's a pretty intense scene as they enter the school. Jay sees the crows, Shadow and Wing, who had been following him, transform into humans and hide behind a big wall. Principal Lisa appears to greet them and goes inside to talk to Anna. All four of them go into Lisa's office. Anna explains that she works in childcare and tells them she found Jay's clothes torn up at the police station. He doesn't remember who he is, and then she convinced her mother to let him live with them, but Jay couldn't adapt. He got into fights with Marlon and hurt his face, and he didn't get along with his classmates, so Anna had to homeschool him. Lisa is convinced that Clearwater Academy is the best place for Jay right now. Luckily, Andrew Melling, the rich guy who specializes in making eco-friendly cars, offered to cover his expenses. Lisa asks to stay alone with Jay, and a student named Zoe comes in to take Melody out. As soon as they leave, Lisa comes back to Jay and tells him she knows he's a mutant. He's shocked at first, but when Lisa admits that everyone at Clearwater Academy is a shapeshifter too, it turns out Jay hasn't been transforming much since living with humans because he's afraid his power will cause trouble. Suddenly, an alarm goes off. Lisa quickly goes out with Jay. The bell rings if humans are around, and sure enough, her suspicions are correct because she finds Melody about to enter the farm. The farm is made especially for the kids to shift into their animal forms. Lisa has to lie and say it's so the kids can stay connected to nature, and Melody believes her. After another student takes Melody away, Lisa and Jay go on a tour. In the middle of it, Jay sees a girl named Lou, who's so beautiful that he gets distracted and bumps into someone by accident, which turns into a fight. Jeffrey the werewolf starts growling, and Jay raises his claws to fight back, but at the last second, the math and behavior teacher, Mr. James Bridger, steps in and breaks it up. Then Lisa calls Jay and they finish the tour without any more problems. After they're done, she asks him if he likes the school, and he says he's happy, and they all look at the car. At that moment, Andrew Melling arrives in his car and talks to Lisa. Jay says goodbye to his mom and sister, and they tell him they'll visit soon. As soon as they leave, Lisa takes Jay to meet Andrew, and when they greet each other, Jay talks about how he grew up among owls and that his father was afraid of humans, but he wasn't, and decided to see the human world for himself. Andrew admits he's excited to see Jay in his real form. Then, Lisa takes Jay to his new dorm room and shows him the rules written on the wall, asking him to follow them. She sends a student to help him and tells him to stay put until she comes back. After she leaves, within seconds, Jay hears a voice in his head. It turns out shapeshifters, woodwalkers, can talk to each other telepathically. The squirrel takes advantage of the situation and tells Jay to open the window. He does, and the squirrel runs to some clothes that are lying around and asks Jay to turn away so she can transform. When he does, in a few seconds, Holly appears. She tries to search Jay's stuff, but he quickly stops her, and it turns out Holly is the guide Lisa sent. They're still talking when Jay's supposed roommate comes in, Numble, a wild rabbit, who immediately runs over to confront him as soon as he smells him. Lisa, because how could she put him in the same room with a predator while he was still adjusting? Holly told Courage to wear his school sports uniform to get ready for transformation class, and they headed out to the yard. If the one transforming was Lei, she joined them and started talking about the attack that happened in the manga, blaming the shapeshifters, mutants, for it. At that point, Holly warned Jim to her father, Mr. Elwood, who was also their teacher. As soon as they arrived, Mr. Elwood explained that it was forbidden for anyone to transform in front of humans, forbidden to take pictures of the transformation, and forbidden for anyone to transform without the teacher's permission. He focused focused especially on Courage because he was still new, and asked him to stand in the middle, in front of Andrew and Lisa, while they waited to see his real form. Brandon, who didn't know how to control himself, got nervous and transformed into a bison, making everyone laugh. He calmly went off to find clothes to change into. After that, the atmosphere went silent, and everyone waited for Courage to transform. But Cliff, who was impatient, threw a stone at him, and Mr. Elwood hit him. Courage was about to leave, but Lisa stopped him and told him she was going to show him how to reconnect with the animal inside him. She asked him to close his eyes and imagine himself in the forest, seeing that he was an owl. At that moment, she asked him for his real name, and Courage thought his name was Courage. The more he repeated the name, the sleepier he felt, until his eyes turned dark gold, his hands became claws, and his whole body was covered in feathers, and he transformed into a full owl in front of Andrew Melling's astonished eyes. After that, Lisa gave the signal for the rest of the students to transform. Holly became a squirrel, Lisa became a hawk, Mr. James and Mr. Bright became wolves, Leroy became a deer, Shadow and Wing became crows, and Jeffrey, along with Liv, Lou, and Takani, transformed into wolves. Lisa continued her encouragement speech through telepathy, and all the students repeated after her in unison. From that moment, the whole academy started calling Courage by his real name, Courage. The next morning, Brandon, who was still figuring things out, went to Courage's room since he was now his new roommate, but his bag got stuck on the doorknob and on his back. At the same moment, Holly came in and suggested they go to the canteen together. As soon as Courage got to the canteen, he was served vegetarian food, but Dorian, who had transformed into a house cat, told the chef he ate meat, so the chef changed it and gave Courage a beef burger. While they were talking, Holly interrupted, and Brandon came and sat with them. After a while, Lou showed up, who was collecting signatures to stop the government's mining project in the park. She got everyone's signature except Courage's, and when Holly was surprised, she explained that Mr. Elwood didn't allow her to talk to him after breakfast. They returned their trays, but Jeffrey and his gang blocked Nimble's way, and the poor rabbit tried to remind them that predators aren't allowed to harass their prey, but Jeffrey didn't care. At that moment, Courage couldn't stay silent and defended Nimble, so he got trapped in the middle of Jeffrey's gang. But as usual, Mr. James arrived at the right moment and separated them. He asked Courage what he would have done if Jeffrey and his gang attacked him, and Courage didn't show any regret. The teacher officially introduced himself and told him to consult him before doing anything reckless. At night, Courage dreamed of his real family, but it happened to Brandon, who had fully transformed. The next morning, all the students gathered to run until they reached fighting class. As they were entering, Holly saw Andrew talking to Mr. Brighteye and wondered why he came to watch them. Courage entered the circle with the students and met Bertha, a girl who could transform into a dog and had just discovered her Brighteye ability. The class started, and Bertha was asked to transform. Then she was put up against Brandon, but Brandon was peaceful and ran away without touching her. Then he asked Courage to transform, but minutes passed and nothing happened. At that moment, Andrew took out a small bag and asked Courage to smell it, and as soon as he did, he quickly felt the effect and turned into an owl in seconds, facing Bertha. Bertha didn't use violence, but Courage didn't waste any time and started attacking her fiercely until Brighteye was forced to stop him. After class, Andrew caught up with Courage and boosted his confidence, then asked to be his mentor. Courage immediately agreed, and Andrew gave him the bag he had and said it was a gift from his father. They greeted each other and walked off, greeting Jeffrey along the way. After a while, Jeffrey approached Courage and challenged him to a fight at midnight and left. Courage followed Holly and Brandon to the forest, and they sat in their treehouse, where he told them about Jeffrey's challenge, and Holly promised she'd be there for him, and even helped him sneak out of the dorm without anyone noticing, while the terrified Brandon followed them, unaware that a puma shapeshifter was trailing them as they approached the fight site. Holly encouraged Courage and told him to show Jeffrey his fierce side. Courage sniffed the bag that Andrew. He gave it to him, and tried to turn into a puma. Then Jeffrey and his gang showed up. The deal was that he would only fight 2 people, but he ended up facing 4. He tried to show them his moves and actually managed to hit Jeffrey in the eye, but the gang dragged him into the fight and made things tough for him. He bit and scratched as much as he could, but half his hand got scratched up from biting. Things got so bad that Holly thought about jumping in. Brandon was frozen in fear and couldn't move. Without thinking, Holly pushed Brandon off the cliff, forcing him to transform into his bison form. Brandon charged at him and the others, creating an opening for Courage to focus. He actually almost bit off Cliff's ear. At that point, Jeffrey surrendered, took his gang, and went back to the dorm. All this happened while Puma was standing above, watching. The next day, Courage came back to class with his arm injured, but his classmates cheered him on for standing up to Jeffrey. Mr. Jamesy noticed Jeffrey's swollen eye and that the rest of the gang was hurt. When he questioned them, they all lied. Even Courage didn't say anything, so he sent them to the school hospital. Right then, Andrew showed up and took Courage, who was in the trunk of his car. While they were driving, Andrew asked him whether his father had taught him to believe or not, and when Courage told him no, Andrew offered to teach him himself. Courage agreed and was happy. After a while, they arrived back at Clearwater, and Andrew got out and made a hand gesture to him. Then a woman appeared, angry angry, saying that what Andrew was doing was favoritism and that he could never make up for her daughter who died because of Courage. Andrew didn't wait for her to finish and walked away, so she turned her words to Courage. She said he was lucky he didn't have to leave the school because of the illegal fight and that he'd only be punished with kitchen duty. After Holly left, Brandon ran to Courage, happy about the new bond between him and Andrew. At that moment, Courage was daydreaming and apologized before following her into the forest. There, he stumbled upon a meeting of the Mutant Council. It was clear they were worried some students might join the rising attacks against humans. Suddenly, Principal Lisa swooped down in eagle form, surprising Courage so much that the council heard him. Lisa flew over to investigate what was wrong. Luckily, she helped him slip away before he was discovered. On the way back, she confessed that she wanted to fight the mutants who attacked humans, but in a peaceful way. Courage agreed and told her he saw 4 wolves around the mine in the dark. Courage was distracted by Lou's beauty, and when he tried to pounce on her, she shoved him into a pool to snap him out of it. Later, he was punished by peeling potatoes in the kitchen with Jeffrey and his gang. After finishing their kitchen duty, Andrew came and took them into the forest to learn how to hunt. There, he revealed that the bag he'd given Courage contained an owl. Courage felt a mix of curiosity and amusement. Then Andrew took off his jacket and started running. While running, he transformed into an owl, and Courage did the same. They kept running through the forest until they reached a high spot where they saw a hunter with a deer. Following Andrew's lead, Courage crept through the bushes, waited for the signal, and managed to bring down the deer. Afterward, they returned to human form and talked about their families. That's when Courage found out Andrew had lost his daughter. He tried to apologize, but Andrew changed the subject and told him he did a good job that afternoon. If you're wondering why Courage doesn't eat like the others, it's because he fed on the deer, which really upset her. So she got up and left, distracted. She wished she'd told Courage that her mother had been attacked by a mountain lion before. Courage ran after her, but she disappeared into the forest and outran him. Worst of all, he fell into the same pool he'd fallen into before. At night, he heard strange noises outside, and when he looked out, he saw the lions returning. He opened the window to follow them. Brandon, Courage's friend, told him he needed some information and forgave him, but then Brandon went back to sleep. At that point, Courage snuck out, transformed, and followed the group until they reached the city limits. He saw Jeffrey threatening a security guard, and at the same time, Clevo and his father were messing with the electrical panel. The officer ran away in fear, and then Crack appeared in front of them. The wolf was about to fight him again, but suddenly Andrew showed up, put the kids in a van, and had Derek drive them to his house. After that, he spoke to Courage privately and told Derek to take the others back to school. Courage didn't waste any time and immediately asked if Andrew was behind the attacks on humans. But instead of answering, Andrew showed him a picture of his wife, his daughter Evelyn, and John, and told him how they went for a walk in the wild and never came back. A hunter killed them and posted their photos online as if they were just trophies. The council has been trying for 50 years to convince humans to protect animals, but it was useless. While he was still talking, Sheila, who had transformed into a snake, came in with dinner. Courage couldn't help but notice the artificial stuntman. Andrew explained to him that she had been hit by a car while in her snake form. They sat down to eat, and Andrew asked Courage to join his team, but Courage wasn't sure and asked for time to think, promising that he would let anyone who knew the secret know. The next day, Dorian, Courage, and Brandon were sitting in the treehouse. After a while, Holly joined them, and since she was bored, they suggested they do something fun. Dorian immediately transformed into a caterpillar, and Holly picked them up, and they went into the forest until they reached a huge tree trunk. Holly pressured Brandon to break it. After a little hesitation, he went up to a tree and transformed in his mind. The first time he rammed the trunk, nothing happened, but the second time he hit it harder and liked the feeling so much that he lost control and kept running through the forest without stopping. In the end, he ran out onto the road and hit Courage's family's car. Courage quickly ran back to school and met his family. Melody hugged him, and the car was completely wrecked, and Courage pretended not to know anything while listening to Molly talk about what happened. The worst part was that Brandon had just woken up the bison, and Holly was running after him trying to distract them, but it was no use. Courage took Molly and his mom to show them his room, and they were amazed by the room and the beautiful natural view it had. They were still in awe of the place. Holly came out, transformed into a squirrel, started searching in her bag, and then ran off. At that moment, Lisa came in and said there was ice cream in the canteen to distract the Ralston family, and the plan worked. After they finished the ice cream, Molly and her mom said goodbye to Courage and decided to join him on the mountain trip that weekend. Courage promised he would be there, but as soon as their car left, he got a call from Andrew, who told him they had a mission that weekend and wanted Courage to be with them. Courage made an excuse about the family trip, but Andrew replied that he had to decide which side to choose. The call ended, and Courage was upset. He took out his anger on Holly and Brandon to clear his head. He went into the forest, threw a small bag next to a tree, and transformed into an owl. With the wind in his face, he flew and flew until he reached the top of a mountain far from the school. He liked the place so much that he fell asleep until he woke up. Where was Wing? The whole school was looking for Courage, and Lisa sent Wing and a certificate, translator note, likely a mistranslation, possibly note or pass, to find him. But by chance, their luck led them to the top of the mountain. They had to go down quickly and discovered that there was a hunter not far away. He was holding the control device, and the drone didn't leave them alone. It kept following them by tracking their heat. After a while, the hunter released dogs after them. At one point, they had to hide at the top of a tree, but the drone wasn't easily fooled. Wing got angry and attacked the drone, which crashed into a tree. Courage kept running, and the hunter shot at him. In the end, he got tired and couldn't keep going, so he had to stop. At that moment, Wing shouted at him and told him to transform into a human so the dogs wouldn't see him as a threat. After a short while, Courage managed to transform, and the dogs were really confused, but he couldn't take 2 steps before he collapsed and lost consciousness. Andrew found Courage unconscious and took him home. When he discovered that Courage's arm was hurt from the chase, he started complaining that the fight wasn't fair. Andrew took advantage of the moment, focusing on the cruelty of humans and making Courage think that maybe they were the ones who had taken out his family, just like they did to Andrew. Unfortunately, this convinced Courage to join Andrew. Hours later, Andrew gathered his allies to discuss the details of their next mission. Courage entered at just the right moment, and Andrew explained that their plan was to destroy equipment worth millions of dollars by setting loose a huge load of trees so they would roll down the hill. Jeffrey interrupted him and started provoking Courage, and it turned into a confrontation between them, but Andrew quickly stopped them and pulled Courage aside, telling him that the leader needed allies, and then helped him. He met his family, then took Jeffrey aside and made the two of them sit and work together, but as soon as Jeffrey left, he came back to make fun of him. At that time, he took a moment to look at the bandage on Courage's hand and showed him the injury he had from the hunter chase. They shared a nice moment that was suddenly interrupted by Courage's phone ringing. He apologized and went to answer, and his mother came out asking if she could come pick him up. Courage made an excuse that he had an appointment with his teacher and quickly hung up before she could ask more questions. He got even more annoyed when Holly and Brandon appeared at Andrew's door. Courage dragged them aside and started lying and covering up what was happening, but they didn't believe him. Still, he told them it was very dangerous for them, so they left, frustrated. Andrew and his allies loaded their equipment into a black van and headed toward the hills. As they were walking, they passed by the National Forum. There is a man in the shop. She was leading a group of children in a demonstration against the mining project. She crouched down in her chair so he wouldn't see her. After a while, the car stopped in the valley near the construction site. Everyone got out, carrying various tools. Techni started talking to Courage and told him she came from a mutant village in Canada and was leaving to teach at Clearwater School. As they walked, they saw workers cutting down trees and digging up acres of the forest. One of the machines broke down. Andrew's car arrived and he started assigning tasks. Garage was responsible for keeping any animals away from the site. Jeffrey and his gang had to make sure civilians stayed clear so no lives would be lost. Andrew himself disappeared to protect his reputation and left the police in charge. They split up, and Courage tried to chase away some rabbits, but they didn't listen to him. At that moment, Techni appeared, helped him, and spoke to the rabbits in their language. They scattered in seconds. Suddenly, Jeffrey called her angrily and told them they had to go back. Courage followed them and discovered that his family had set up camp in the nearby valley. He was very worried and went to tell Dirk, but Dirk didn't care and told him to help Dan tie ropes to the huge logs. Suddenly, a group photo of his mother arrived, and he got more anxious, so he called Andrew. Andrew admitted he knew where Courage's family was and said they weren't in danger in the valley, but Courage wasn't reassured. Andrew said the call came after they thought the Charleston family wasn't his real family, which made Courage even more nervous. He ran to Dan, banged on the car window, and begged him to stop, but Dan didn't listen. He started the car and used the winch to pull the log, but before the log could break free, it suddenly stopped. When they looked behind, they found Bison standing in the road, blocking it, with a squirrel and 2 crows flying overhead, Crotcham's friends, there to save him. Dan tried to speed up to get past Brandon, but Brandon stood his ground and the car's tire just spun uselessly. At that moment, they decided to look for something to shove under the wheel to keep the car from moving, under Jeffrey's command. Shadow and Wing told him to get injured and pull back so everyone else wouldn't be exposed. Meanwhile, what happened to Techni, who had gone up the hill to check on Courage all this time? She had been hiding behind one of the machines and suddenly came out to confront Derek, who tried to scare her, but when that didn't work, he started to get violent. So Wing was forced to intervene. Derek got very angry, transformed into a bear, and Techni started screaming in fear, backing closer to the edge of the hill every second. As soon as Brandon heard her scream, he left the car and rushed to save her from the other side. Holly climbed onto Dan's car dashboard and distracted him, which gave Courage enough time to wedge a tree trunk behind the car's rear wheels, just as it was about to roll. Dan was so busy he didn't notice Brandon coming. And suddenly the Bison headbutted Derek hard and threw him far away as if he was nothing, knocking the ball out of his hands at the same time. Courage managed to wedge the tree trunk behind the car's wheels. Holly crawled into Dan's jacket, making him so angry that he got out of the car, grabbed her, and threw her far away. But Techni appeared at the right moment and caught her before she fell down the other side. Courage transformed into his owl form and stood in front of Dan, but Dan got scared and ran away. This is Courage and Techni. At that moment, Andrew, who had also transformed transformed into an owl, took the opportunity to remove the trunk that Courage had wedged, and the car started to pull the logs free. Courage stood in front of Andrew, challenging him. The two owls glared at each other, but Andrew slipped away from Courage and broke his spirit. At that moment, the car succeeded in pulling the logs loose, and the trees started rolling down the hill, picking up speed as they went. Brandon quickly got out of the way, but the logs began to destroy everything in their path. She heard the loud sound of the logs falling above and called for Donald and Marlon, but Molly was wearing headphones and didn't hear her mother's voice. The logs were falling quickly, and Courage was running at top speed. Her husband, Marlon, and their dog were the first to find a place to hide. Donald had to pull his wife away because she was in danger. She was trying to save Molly. At the last moment, before the logs crushed the child, Courage jumped toward her. The destruction was everywhere in the valley. She screamed, looking for her daughter, but fortunately, Molly answered her. They followed the sound until the whole family reunited and hugged each other, relieved. Molly kept saying that it was the owl who saved her life, but her family thought she had just hit her head. Holly and Brandon found Courage unconscious, not far from the accident site. She was terrified and kept shaking him until he opened his eyes. They all breathed a sigh of relief, but Courage quickly returned to his human form and rejoined his family. Andrew also appeared, pretending he knew nothing about what had happened. Courage's eyes were blazing with anger, and if looks could kill, he would have finished Andrew off 3 times, but he held back. Andrew called a helicopter and it arrived in a few minutes later, Ralston said goodbye and they got on the helicopter to go to Cara Hospital. Farag stayed behind to confront Andrew, but he went silent as soon as Andrew hinted that he could find Farag's new family in Williston. At that moment, Lisa and Mr. James interrupted the conversation. Andrew lied, told a made-up story, and blamed the gendarmerie, claiming that Farag's friends were the real heroes and that no humans had come close. Lisa asked them to leave, but explained that she would keep investigating the matter. Farag and his friends then visited Clearwater School together. There, they found everyone talking about their heroism. They were welcomed like kings and queens and earned the respect of all the teachers and students. If you liked the summary, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.